You could make the case that the Lower East Side is the most American neighborhood in the United States. It is, after all, America's foyer. It is a neighborhood whose story cannot be separated from the story of immigrants, migrants, and refugees who came here generation after generation, beginning in the 1860s. Passing through this neighborhood, they became Americans and helped create America.
Becoming American, neighborhood change, how your neighborhood shapes your identity, immigrant and migrant entrepreneurship. We see all of these different themes, both in the past and in the present in the Lower East Side.
You know, they say you can never judge a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Walking tours help people to walk in the shoes of our immigrant forebears, understand their lives, and understand the broader community in which they lived.
At the Tenement Museum, we have a number of neighborhood walking tours, including Outside the Home, Then and Now, Building on the Lower East Side, and Foods of the Lower East Side. Outside the Home thinks about Americanization and the different spaces in the neighborhood that shaped individuals living in the Lower East Side. Foods of the Lower East Side looks at immigrant foodways, both past and present. Our Then and Now program covers neighborhood change and why the Lower East Side looks the way that it does today. And our Building on the Lower East Side program looks at architecture and asks questions about why buildings are built, what problems are they fixing, what is the future of the Lower East Side.
Welcome everyone to the Lower East Side Tenement Museum, and welcome to the Then and Now walking tour. My name is Kiana. I'll be your educator today.
So often when we're walking, we're going from point A to point B, and rarely do we slow down and actually look up. And so on the neighborhood walking tours here at the Tenement Museum, we encourage visitors to stand in front of buildings that they might never look at or never notice, and look at them in their entirety. Whether you're from a different country or you've been a resident of the Lower East Side for 20 years, you can't help but see the Lower East Side a little bit differently once you've finished one of the neighborhood walking tours.
One final really interesting tidbit that I like about this space is that the rose window, when you look at it, it looks like a camera aperture, but if you connect it, it forms a Star of David. So still really interesting ways that he's maintaining the past and the present of this space.
On our neighborhood walking tours, visitors should expect the unexpected.
Going on a walking tour, we are leaving the confines of the museum, and anything can happen. You will see historic buildings, you will see modern buildings, you will see people on the sidewalk going about their everyday lives, but you will also see something that maybe you never expected to see.
Not only do we talk about history, but we talk about art, and we talk about culture, and we talk about the reality of being here all throughout history. Educators ask questions. We want to hear how you interpret the building in front of you, and then how it changes once new information is presented. All of our programs are conversations. We don't lecture. We believe that dialogue is the most entertaining way to learn.
Can't do a New York City food tour without bagels. This is the cafe Russ and Daughters. Joel Russ, Polish immigrant, starts selling schmaltz herring out of a barrel. He wants to start a brick and mortar store. He wants to pass it on. Russ and Sons, that was always his vision. He only has daughters. They were excellent saleswomen. So to acknowledge their role in the business, he names it Russ and Daughters. Everyone thought he was crazy. It's the first business to acknowledge the role of women in the family working in that way. Here he is, 4 generations later.
I particularly enjoyed a few buildings that I know that I've walked past and I've never taken the opportunity to look up or notice what they are.
I used to work on Orchard Street, not far from the museum. You know, walking past these places that you just never take the time to look at or think about definitely makes me want to just like stop at all these blocks and just look up and appreciate more of what was here before.
You kind of get disconnected from where food comes from and really the history behind it. And this tour really showed me how food shapes communities and how it really brings them together.
It's also a sensory experience. You know, there are different smells, different people. Definitely an engaging experience for people who maybe don't like traditional museums.
If you want to understand the story of America, you have to understand the story of the Lower East Side. This is a neighborhood that's changed enormously over time, from being the home of Native Americans to being a German neighborhood once called Klein Deutschland or Little Germany, to being a neighborhood where you would have heard Yiddish, then Spanish, then Chinese spoken on the streets. The only constant in life is change, and that's one thing that the Lower East Side exemplifies probably better than any other neighborhood in America. Our walking tours help people understand how a community develops, how people come here from other places and build a place for themselves and find a place for themselves, and in the process help create a new nation.